And so in the future, if I make like graphics, because people lose so much attention because they rather see flashy pop, you know what. And when you make so many graphics, you might as well just make an entire open world of it. But at that point, it's like, what's the point? Just to keep an attention. In the future, if I derive an entire judicial system just through graphics alone, it's nothing short of trying to hop on one leg and act spectacular. Trying to toot my horn when it's already blowing. Hashtag white noise. I'd love to jump off that. That's not on the curb, so I probably shouldn't. Would it look like I'm ringing their doorbell and get confused? No, on record, that would look bad. Remember this video. Make things blatantly obvious when they're apparent. I just saw a truck that was fashioned with Clifford and kids on it. You know, you can put green screen on things. And that might make up the makeup of what pop culture actually is. This truck, however, had paint on it of what I just described. Blew my mind. It was in a parking lot of children who are out on recess. Never seen anything like this in my life. I would be weary if I was that truck driver. As I was just explaining to you, my truck driving experience at an outdoor toilet facility. Would have parked the truck more gradually instead of having it be as though it was a border with a curtain. Borders are not esoteric, scandalous. On the internet, I saw the crime of a guy who had bondage equipment inside of his truck and would pick up hitchhikers and bring them to his playground. For the video, it's on record, so the most important thing I've ever said in 2 years, cars aside, you know, we need an extra length of degree of freedom from any BS on the road. You know, you can stop on the side and stare, but we've got our extra degree to my right. This is in cinematics, a backdrop. The pop culture doesn't care about the gratitude, all the wish-wash. That's what police are for. And so the moment that that's confused, you've already lost the game. The name of the game is not virtue signaling. This is why God said, honor me in secret and then you'll be rewarded. And when all the shots are on the table, and then you start calling out shots as if there's even more. So the bartender told me, why don't you enjoy your drink at the bar? It's the creepiest thing I've ever heard a female say to me. A minute ago, a guy told me, why don't I use the sidewalk after I was explaining I've just seen 2 cars. The first car, as I'm pulling out of the driveway, you know, I have my cord stuck. These are action points aside from cinematics. I let the car go by because my headphones are stuck. The moment you get nitpicky in production, where you want a backdrop different, it's quantum mechanics that's the forefront, where you would at the same time be suggesting you want a better future, the forefront. God's flipped the script, he knows all the answers. The forefront is the backdrop as light travels to you from the past. That being said, quantum computers based it off that same model, where the logic of transistors, we're going to talk about in a minute, in a morning segment. Sun's going down, shadows are getting long. It's clearly not the morning. That up next. But first, if I was a guy watching me, would I watch what I'm saying? When you talk about cinematics, probably. So that being said, in quantum computers, they derive their logic, and people deriving their logic from memory is the past, but the logic of computing done in transistors, quantum computers have their transistors as physical things other than the classical microchips. They're fancied as more of, let's just say, microbes for now, because there's like 5 famous ones, but like for all intentional purposes, fabricating quantum computing in their compressibility of hardware, let's just say that it's more of like microbes as opposed to having a vial of effing shit. Like in a toilet, if you have a toilet with shit in it, that's like a transistor of a classical computer. It's all right there. And a quantum computer, it'd be like an entire company of outdoor toilets all put together inside one facility's backyard. I should know, I've been there. That's what a quantum computer is. And whenever someone does SHIT inside of a portable outdoor bathroom and it's brought back into that facility, that is more transistors that it has to work with, because the transistor of a quantum computer isn't the toilet, it's the factory owning a business of toilets that are sent out all over the land. It's a terrible wind, I know. The fact of the matter is, like, when there's some like stench in the air and it's kind of like it's just wind blowing hard, going against a wall to find a blockage so it doesn't hit your microphone. Is there a better way in doing this so that the words I'm saying aren't compressed by airwaves, but just a direct line from my vocal cords to the microphone? These types of questions. Let's take a look at my shoes for a second while I explain what happened this week. So my shoe is broken. This comes off when you put your foot forward. Great representation, A1. If I had a strap, I'd strap my heel to it fastened so it wouldn't come out, so I would have better control of it. And in the last week, it's Shaggy 2 Dope from ICP and Alex Jones have both made podcasts explaining what they're spilling their guts out, and I'm not gonna watch either of them, but the fact that they're both doing that, I think they said like a lot, so that's speaking on like when we're all dead and gone, that's gonna be like a thing that is there of them, is mind altering, because how did they both get that same idea at the same time? And stay tuned for the president has a whole bunch of access, and through like continental agreements he can like find loopholes and make things that are unconstitutional, as long as it's done through outside of the continent. And there's ways of doing that because there's all these alignments like NATO. And so in missing a step, if your shoe falls apart, because there's like a big difference on the heel if it is an inch or not, you have like this walk of missing an inch. And I'm not trying to pick on the disabled, but when you're missing more than an inch, you could be a midget. And so the celebration, let's not be cheesy, of when you're a midget, you probably don't live at the long life of the average person at 70, which now it's dropped lower. And so when there's someone being celebrated, as like there's a midget that's 53 and they're celebrating him, it's probably because that's like his last dying days. So as long as you can make it to the corner of a curb, you're allowed to like throw your stuff on it, as long as you don't throw it hard enough to break the concrete. That's the actual logistic. And I wouldn't think it was a thing. But I didn't know that a shoe could come off. And this is the whole with recycling. There's a certain way to do it, and if you're not doing it, you can get looked at as everything is garbage if you're not recycling properly. And this is something you say to children, but as people who are writing books and white papers explaining how to recycle, and they're looking at everyone as if they're children. So in order to eat at the big table, you've got to start with that. The real world, you know, is it remaking what hell is in the end? Ostensibly things in control of recycling and garbage, not knowing the difference of the two. And it really comes down to knowing how like you can make how like you don't want to throw something away because you've weathered it so nice and broken it in. And it's a real disclaimer of what retro is, especially if you have like your leg and it's has a muscle that is popping in the back of your quad when you're sleeping and it sticks there like a Charlie horse. That's a real thing. But if it happened to your groin with a muscle going over it, that's a certain amount of pressure where it would be like, what would it take for that to occur? You'd almost have to press on concrete hard enough in order for the concrete to break with small objects. And maybe that's the only thing that Rhetoric in the Chronicles of Rhetoric had, where he shoved a mug through someone, and that would be, of course, the plot of Chronicles of Rhetoric, where he shoves a mug through someone. And this is, of course, like his only feat other than walking onto the sun and not burning. If you look at that movie on a whole, what a garbage amount of movie if those are the only two plot points that are significant. And so this is just startling. I'm talking about, I'm not rambling, these are facts, but just on the corner, I've never had my shoe fall apart. And the only reason I did is because some a-hole in the fucking gym didn't blow up a step, you know, a bouncy step that you can blow up. He said use my mouth. I ended up breaking my shoe and it just came apart. So I'm flabbergasted that, you know, the surface of things in tension can actually do stuff like make your shoe come apart. Imagine concrete, that surface tension. It cracks on its own with weather, but how do you make it? Thank God they went in recess. And when you're speaking on like what's a free speech advocate, open world and gaming would all just make more sense of any like material that's recorded on the internet